So good morning, everyone. I see you're all coming in from Victoria to Tasmania. What a perfect fit. We just give it a few more seconds, but I already see you've got the system worked out pretty well. So I think I actually can start looking at all the names here. So welcome to Tasmania. My name is Suzanne. I'm based in today lovely sunny Frankfurt, so not too far away from you guys. And we dive directly into Tasmania, where the wild things are. I thought I'd touch a little bit more on the very special wild things you can discover in Tasmania. And starting off with the wild Tassie facts. Tasmania is Australia's smallest state, but the largest island in the very south. 40% nature and 20% of it is UNESCO World Heritage. That's the Tasmanian wilderness. We have 19 national parks, so there's a lot of nature, and of course there's a lot of outdoor experiences as well. We've got, but that's actually confirmed, the cleanest air in the world and the highest sea cliffs of Australia. And we've got absolutely unique wildlife. I mean, our key animal in Tassie is the Tasmanian devil. You all know him or her. You know, he's endangered, but a lot is being done in Tassie to actually make it sustainable for the Tassie devil. There's a lot of research, and I urge you to get your clients to one of our sanctuaries, like Bonorong Sanctuary close to Hobart, the Tasmanian Devil Anzu close to Port Arthur, or Devils at Cradle, close to Cradle Mountain, because they do a lot to actually maintain the population of the Tassie devils. But there are also a lot of, whether wombats, kangaroos, wallabies, you can see in the wild while traveling. Oh, okay. So I thought I'd focus this presentation on road trips, since this is probably what most of your clients would do, a self-drive, and focus a little bit on the East Coast, as well as on the West Coast. So something a little bit more straightforward and something a little bit more advanced. We start in Hobart. Probably most of your clients will arrive in Hobart. It's the capital city of Tasmania. It's around 250,000 people living there. Really nice, the waterfront you can see here, but very spectacular also Mount Wellington in the back. It's 1,000 meters, so good exercise for a day. So there's already outdoor experience to be had in Hobart. But the key, what you need to recommend your clients is Mona, Museum of Old and New Art. Whether you like museums or not, it's an experience. David Walsh, the owner and founder, he actually made all his money in gambling. He's a very eccentric person. And as you can see here, he calls his museum a subversive adult Disneyland. It's a real experience, art from the early Egyptians until very up to really modern, but the whole side, how he developed it, the kind of art, the restaurants, accommodation, etc. So it's worthwhile visiting. Make sure you take the boat or your clients. It's very easy to get to, and it's open 6 days a week, closed on Tuesday, have to remember. We are moving along the East Coast, get to the Tasman Peninsula. The Tasman Peninsula is famous for its cliffs. The highest sea cliffs in Australia are to be found here. And it's no surprise that the early settlers, they came actually developing Sydney. The second settlement was Hobart, and with it Port Arthur. It's a convict settlement, part of the UNESCO World Heritage convict sites, which we have 5 in Tasmania. And it's a must-see site for visitors. It's a really gives you good understanding of what happened when the convicts were held there. Very sad stories, but very interesting as well. It's 7 days a week, and it's really easy. You do a tour around, you get interpreters as well, and it's very worthwhile to understand the history of Tasmania. Moving along the East Coast, further up north, a little island of the big island, that's Ariah Island. That's a national park, and there's really hardly anything on Ariah Island. There's a settlement which is called Darlington, and that also belongs to the convict sites. There's a ranger station, bunk bed accommodation, but nothing for the international traveler. So it's either day tours, and the ferry is running from Tribana during the summer season 5 times a day and very regularly. The highlight, of course, on Ariah Island is not only these beautiful beaches and nature, it's the wildlife. Honestly, when I went there, I stopped counting wombats when I had more than 50. They are everywhere, especially in the evening with little ones. It's such a great experience. And if you want to spend a little bit more time, there's the Ariah Island Walk. 2 nights you spend in accommodation like this here, the standing camp, and one night in one of the houses, the Victorian buildings in Darlington. It's a beautiful walk. If you ever have to sell one walk in Tassie, Ariah Island is highly recommended. We move on to FraserNet National Park. That's the next national park, and everyone knows FraserNet National Park because of this one. That's Wineglass Bay, one of the most beautiful bays in probably Tassie or Australia. But what's great about it, in Tassie, we've got the 60 great short walks, and you don't only have to walk up to the lookout to see this beach, you can walk onto the beach, and you can extend your walking when you actually go onto the park's website or get the brochure at one of the visitor centers. There's fabulous accommodation in FraserNet Lodge. It's actually in the national park, and it's a lodge that gives you accommodation from very sort of easygoing type cabins to 5-star accommodation. And our key accommodation, certainly in all of Tasmania, is one of the luxury lodges of Australia. That's Sapphire. That's really 5-star plus. It's outside the national park, but you have the same areas to explore. Now moving on to Launceston, the second biggest township in Tasmania, moving to the west. And Launceston is a really small little township, beautiful Victorian buildings, and it's close to one of our famous wine routes, the Tama Valley wine route. We have 4 in total, and Tama Valley is the closest. Very popular for sparkling wine, so it's a must-see when you're traveling along the north. We get to Stanley. Here, what you see in the backdrop, that's the nut. You can understand why it's called the nut. It has the form of a nut. There's an old chairlift going on there. Like for us Europeans, a bit of an experience, but it's the landmark of Stanley. It's a really beautiful little quaint village with really nice little shops. And it's the gateway. Oh, sorry, I forgot that I had included some great accommodation. That's the ship in Stanley. It's relatively new. And the owner, they made a big effort to make it really cozy and 18th century type, 19th century type accommodation. But it's the gateway to the Tarkan. The Tarkan is one of the oldest temperate rainforests in the world. It's really worth preserving the Tarkan, and we can support the Tarkan in visiting this beautiful area. There's a lot of wildlife because there are not a lot of people traveling that part of the world. And it's also the home to our favorite animal, the Tassie devil. You can see them in the wild there, but I can tell you it's really, really hard. They are quite shy. We're getting along the west coast to Strahan. Strahan is one of the wettest townships in Australia. And the west coast and the east coast, you already see this in the images, is completely different in Tasmania, and it's only divided by 300 kilometers. So Strahan is in the west, where it's raining a lot, and where it's really green, a lot of rainforest. It's a beautiful little settlement, once again, with a few pubs and very, very quaint. But the key people are doing here is actually the Gordon River cruise. You go on the Gordon River into the World Heritage Tasmanian Wilderness. It's a full day tour from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Make sure you book the upper deck, then you get like your local food and drinks and sparkling, of course. And it's a hybrid boat. So when you go into the river, it actually gets completely still and you drift along and you can hear the birds. It's a great way to explore this area because otherwise you only get there by foot or by paddling. And then moving on, keeping one of the best for last, that's Cradle Mountain. You know, everyone wants to go to Cradle Mountain. It's one of our key destinations. And as you can see here, this guy stands at Dove Lake and looking towards the mountain. It's a really, really pretty area. And this photo I added for you to understand how it works. Down on the left-hand side, there's the car park of Dove Lake. Here, only buses from the visitor center can get to. So you have to park your car at the visitor center and they drive you there. It's basically to regulate the amount of people. There's never a problem. It's actually only in very high season, probably in January when the holidays in Australia as well, that it gets a little bit more busy. And you also can see the beautiful walks. You can walk around Dove Lake. That's probably the easiest, around 2.5 hours. But you know, the keen ones, they also can climb Cradle Mountain, which I was told is a bit tricky on the top, but other than that, it's quite doable. There's beautiful accommodation all over Cradle Mountain. I just picked Pepper's Cradle Mountain Lodge because it's the closest to the visitor center. It's a beautiful, cozy settings. All cabins are actually scattered around the rainforest. And if you have really top-end clients, put them in the King Billy suites. They just have been completely renovated. And it's an experience in the middle of the rainforest, which is hard to find. Well, that's all very quick. I guess 10 minutes for each of our STOs is really, really short, but I try to give you an overview of the most important things in Tassie. If you need more information, our Tassie Trade website is a wealth of information. TassieTrade.com, you find itineraries, you find more information on different products. So take your time and have a little visit there. And other than that, I wish you all luck for today. And thank you for joining Tasmania, where the wild things are.
Thanks very much, Suzanne. Great to learn about Tasmania.
That was a run through.
Yeah, no, that's great. We've got a few minutes for questions. We do have one agent joining us today who is planning a motorhome itinerary. So she's asking, is there anywhere she can find information about motorhome parks or kind of parking?
Yeah, you got me on the spot. If you Google it, there's a website where it actually says camper van parking, but generally they can park at all the campsites, the regular campsites. They can park in national parks, like especially in FraserNet and in Cradle Mountain. Cradle Mountain, there's one campsite for camper vans just right next to the visitor center. And along the East Coast, there's sometimes a little bit of free camper van parking, and in the Bay of Fires in the very north, they are little areas, which is really, they hardly cost anything. You just put some money into the Ranger bag and you can park there in little parking areas. So it's well signposted, it's official camping. And if you Google it, you find a website for it as well. I just don't remember the name at the moment, but there's a lot of options, and it's actually really, really nice. At the beginning, when I started working for Tasmania 4 years ago, I thought it's a car rental destination, but camper van is absolutely stunning there and no problem to park them.
Great, thank you. We've got another question. Would elderly people be able to visit the highlights, or are they restricted? And we also had a question about, is Tassie disabled friendly? So kind of talk a bit about accessibility there.
Yeah, like at Cradle Mountain, for example, as you see, it's not a problem to get to Dove Lake because there's a car park and you really can see Dove Lake. In FraserNet, I mean, to see Wineglass Bay, you have to walk up to the Wineglass Bay lookout, and it's not really disabled friendly because it's a hiking trail. It's easy to walk, but I would not recommend it. Other than that, everything, is easily accessible. Also Port Arthur and Launceston, the cities anyhow. Just with FraserNet as such, the beaches is no problem. It's just when you go on a hike, it's a little bit more difficult.
Great, thanks. I think we've got time for one more. Sarah has asked, if you only had a week, what would be the must-sees?
Oh, that's very hard to say. I think you probably would stay on the East Coast. That's the easiest to get to. And I always say, if you only have a week, and you can do FraserNet and then drive up to Launceston and do Cradle Mountain, but I would then prefer just traveling along the East Coast and really take your time, because otherwise you just spend too much time traveling and not having enough time at the different locations.
Great, thank you very much.